not be there as often. They had the son graduating from high school and then hanging out with all these new friends and things at the park. And I think all of that kind of complicated matters and made that pile up of the stressors.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think you could tell just from their body language how separate they were when they even walked in. I mean, like, here is the, the mom and the dad and the sister walking in, and the brother kind of walks in slowly. I'm Jimmy, sits away from his family. His body language is shut down, and you could tell that there was stress going on. So before even, after the introductions were made, before he asked what was going on, I kind of felt it had something to do with the son, because the body language of the whole family, was totally different. And I'm glad that the counselor was able to see that and kind of rearrange their seats about midway to make them see that they were 3 against 1 in a sense. And he wanted that to be represented in the way they were sitting. It was almost like it was the mom and the daughter against the son, with the dad kind of in the middle. And so he took that representation out and moved them around, so that then he was physically looking at the people that were directly involved, which was the son and the parents. And I thought that was a better representation of than the body language of I'm sad, or I'm misunderstood, and that kind of was enlightening to me.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything on that point?
I can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, because my computer just decided to freeze, so I missed about 3 minutes of what everyone said. But yeah, I agree. I definitely noticed the body language, and also it just seemed like he helped their perspectives to change. Like they changed in the way they saw Jimmy. Like you said, they weren't being accusing so much anymore, and it was kind of amazing to me. It was amazing to see how at the end they were more relaxed and kind of like, oh, this isn't like as bad as we thought. And so he did that by focusing on their strengths. Like he would say things like he'd focus on their marriage, like, oh, you love your wife, and focus on helping them see the good in themselves. And that helped them to analyze the issue better.
Right. Well, and one of the points in here on page 140, because we finished, like, page 139 is where we were at. So 140, it talks about helping families live with uncertainty, and he told them, you can't predict everything that's going to happen. He helped them to see that there is going to be some uncertainty in life, and some of the things, the uncertainty was, what is the son doing every time he goes out? That was one of the things that they were concerned about, was he behaving himself, or was he doing things that he shouldn't be doing? And how are they supposed to trust that? And said, they just needed, the son kept saying, just trust me. And it's like, well, what proof do we have, type thing. And there's some uncertainty that comes with that as children grow, and you have to start letting them go at that age. And that was what he was trying to get at, is he is now an adult. He's no longer just a child. So
I don't mean to change the pace, but is somebody writing this all down so that we make sure? I don't know who was.
I'm taking notes, but I missed part of it, so hopefully it's okay.
I think we're doing good.
I was going to say, the main thing we talked about, I think, while you were gone, Heather, because I kind of saw you blip out, and I thought, the main thing we talked about was that at the beginning, when they first came in, let me go back real quick and make sure I got my notes right. The therapist talked about, he made sure to clarify with those questions and to find out why they were there, and what was the problem in the family. And he established all those stressors of the things where they had the move, they had dad's job change, dad wasn't home as much, Jimmy graduated from high school, which is a whole new ball game. You know, all these different things that were the pile up of the stressors. So that's the basic overview of what we talked about while you were gone.
Okay, so I heard part of that, so I guess it wasn't.
Okay.
Okay.
So the next one I see here is, we talked about clarifying ambiguity. We talked about helping families live with uncertainty. Seizing opportunities in the midst of the crisis. Anybody have anything they want to add on that?
The kid mentioned, Jimmy, sorry, I should use his name, mentioned how he doesn't communicate with his father anymore because he doesn't have, they don't drive in a car, and that was the only time he really ever opened up for his dad. And the therapist said, well, then take a drive, you know, and almost like take this opportunity to go and connect with your dad. And then when things seemed to be getting better between the siblings, he said, why don't you guys go get a soda, which I loved so much because that's such an old thing to say, to go get a soda. But I thought that was such a good advice to give to these siblings. Like, they need to reconnect. They only have each other. And they could be each other's advocate instead of pinning them against each other, because that's what was happening, is the parents were using the daughter as a resource to find out what was going on with Jimmy. Jimmy felt like he had two moms instead of a sister. So that was another way that they could reconnect to each other. And I think that their fears were calmed down a little bit more. And so suggesting that they use that calmness to set up, I don't know, kind of dates or whatever you'd like to call these connections will help them in the long run, I think.
Well, and I love that the therapist made the parents, or the dad, ask the mom out on a date and rekindle that whole situation, because that's really the start of the family, is the parents. And if the parents aren't connected, then how do they expect the kids to be connected to the family?
Especially because they were on such opposite. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying I liked that too, because he said you guys don't get very far when your conversations start in an argument. You have to wait until you're not arguing anymore before you can actually get a solid conversation through. And so I liked that too, in connection with the siblings. When he made that, he wanted them to go get a soda and to hang out and stuff. He also wanted the parents to do something very similar. Yeah.
Take the conflict out of it. Or normalizing the family distress is the next bullet point, which that's kind of what he was trying to help do, is to normalize some of the distress and the things where they can talk in a more relaxed setting.
I think along with the seizing opportunities, I think it seems like the parents hadn't realized that he was like really confused, but that they needed to.
Heather, you breaking up, or you froze again?
Kind of sign, and I've seen like that was.
Did anybody else understand what Heather said? Because I'm only getting every, like, 4 or 5 minutes.
Me too.
It almost looks like she's frozen again.
Heather.
Or she's really good at staying still.
And freeze.
Gosh. And she's supposed to be recording all of this.
It's okay. It'll get done.
Okay,
I think this is funny because we're learning about all this coping with stress, and to me, this class has caused me some stress, and I'm like, we gotta learn some coping skills here. I don't know, we gotta apply some of this to our group meetings just so that we're not so stressed out about it. It'll get done. I think we're all doing a good job. It's clear that we've all studied this and that we know the case study, so I think we're doing fine.
Yeah, I think so too.
I had that same conversation with my husband. I said, do I get to tell the teacher that when they ask me what my stresses are, that this class is causing me the most stress of?
The most.
Yes. Okay, so did anybody have anything on, let me look at that one. I didn't have anything on depathology. Oh, pathology, I can't even say it. And contextualizing the problem situation. I didn't really have anything on that. The next one I had anything on was using respectful language and constructs. And I felt like the family, they were pretty, at least in the conversation that we saw, I didn't see a lot of negative words being used. There was no foul language. There was no calling each other names. There was none of that. They were being very constructive with what they did.
I think it's hard because there was an obvious difference between the language that Jimmy uses and the language his parents use. And so when it's almost like we're all speaking a foreign language and we can't hear we can't understand what each other are saying. And so it was almost like Jimmy was trying to tell his parents, respect me and give me my space. Let me do what I want to do right now. And trust me, I'm not going to do something bad. And his parents were like, we're worried about you. You don't have ambitions. You're not taking care of yourself. You're disappearing and not communicating with us. But neither one of them could hear what each other was saying. So I think using respectful language is not just doesn't even talk about just even swearing. It also is kind of that getting on the same page of language. It's really hard to speak the language of teenager when you're a parent. It's hard when you're a teenager to speak the language of a parent because you don't understand it. So I think that going to therapy is extremely helpful in that. He got them on the same page. He got them speaking the same language. So that was really important.
Yeah, I noticed that even in my own household with teenagers. There's a very different language between parents and children. So, and to get them on the same, well, and I like the fact that the therapist, he actually tried to use some words. Some of them I'd never heard before, but Jimmy understood them. I mean, it was totally in his world, and it kind of brought the whole conversation around to where they all kind of got it. I was a little lost on some of it, but I guess I'm getting old, so.
It was funny. I thought he was funny.
He was. Does anybody else have anything to say on that?
I think in relation to that, when he actually physically had them move so that they could connect better with the people they were sitting by so that he wasn't looking back and forth, I think that was also part of what his plan, is making them physically move next to one another and be in the same kind of section, because it felt like Jimmy was an outcast in the beginning because he was clear over in another seat, not with them. But yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It almost felt like he was even talking over his shoulder to Jimmy at one point in time because he was like trying to face the parents, so his body was like turned and Jimmy's over his shoulder, and I felt like, poor Jimmy, they're talking about him but not to him, you know.
Right.
And then like I was just begging for him to get his moment where he was getting recognized. I can't imagine how awkward that would feel to have 4 people talk about you and you're right there.
Yeah.
And so he did a good job at then
I agree.
regrouping and facing towards them and bringing them back in that.
Yeah. Okay, so identifying, affirming, and building family strengths. So we already talked about some of these, where we, talking about crediting the positive intentions. We talked about the fact that that the parents weren't doing it because they didn't like the kid or they were upset with them so much as they were worried about him. And Jimmy just, when he was upset, he wanted them to care about him, and he was thinking they didn't care about him because they were yelling at him. It was the back and forth of the non-communication thing again. Praising efforts and achievements, drawing out hidden resources and lost competence, finding strengths in the midst of adversity. All these things kind of go together. So if anybody has anything to add on that, let's go ahead and talk about those now.
Hear me?
Yep.
I can hear you guys for the most part, so I'm taking notes. But I don't know if people can hear me. But so what was the question again?
Does anybody
About
have
finding
any?
strength?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know, kind of like what we said. I think he did a really good job of helping them all, like, feel like they had positive intentions. I feel like he talked a lot about the husband and wife's relationship. He was dwelling on. Yeah, that's what stood out to me.
We lost a lot of that again, Heather, so we'll keep hoping that. I think we're all on the same page, but I'm only getting a few words out of you every time.
Oh
I think if I gathered right, she was talking about how he was encouraging the relationship between the husband and wife, like recognizing that the husband was saying, this is important to my wife, like he was obviously recognizing that the husband cares for his wife. Is that what you were saying,
no.
Heather?
Oh, good. Yay! Well, and the other thing that I thought was really good was that when they first started out, knowing that Jimmy was the main reason that they were there, he talked about him skateboarding and the good things that can happen with that. And then at the end, he tied it into, well, why don't you drive him to the skate park and watch him? Why don't you spend some time as a family supporting him in the thing that he enjoys and praising that effort and some of the things that he is good at? Maybe he's not a great scholar or he doesn't have a job right now, but it was still something that he was good at, and it was something that was important to him. And then the other thing that I found very interesting was that the parents kept talking about the fact that they didn't know the kids' friends. So how are they supposed to know, what these friends were like, or the little bit of interaction that they'd had with these friends hadn't been, what they would consider well enough to know the kids. And then, going to the skate park, though, since that's where he hangs out with all these kids and watching them skate and seeing their interactions, they would be able to know the kinds of personalities these kids have and how they really behave and some of those kinds of things. So I thought that was pretty, not only drawing out Jimmy's strong suit, but it would appease the parents and the fact that they would get to know the kids that he's hanging out with.
I agree with that.
Does anybody else have anything to add on that? Okay. Let's move on and see what else we have here. Building empathetic connections with and between family members. Go ahead, Shai.
What did you say? Let me just make sure I heard you right.
Oh, I said building empathetic connections with and between family members.
I think he did a good job with that, with showing the family, like, this is how Jimmy's feeling. Jimmy's feeling like you don't trust him. Put yourself in his shoes. He's not doing anything wrong, but he feels like you hate him. He leaves the house because he feels like everybody hates him. And so I think by showing him that, by showing them that was a way to show empathetic connections for them.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, and I liked the way that he turned it back around to Jimmy. Do you understand where your mom and dad are coming from? They don't know where you're at. You're not communicating with them. You're not giving them any kind of string sort of hold on to that says that, hey, I'm okay. Call them. Let them know. Like, that's one of the things with my kids. I'm like, you want to go out with these friends, that's fine, but you need to call and let me know where you're at. You need to let me. It's that. If we know, then we stop praying, and you guys can have some freedom, so to speak. So, yeah, and that's that empathetic connection of where the other person sits in their shoes. Mm-hmm. So, I'm sorry, my phone keeps ringing. People keep coming in and out. There's not a quiet room in my house most of the time. Both the phones are out in the other room, honey. Sorry. Okay. Does anybody else have anything to add to that?
I think the empathetic connections was one of the biggest things, like the biggest themes of this therapy session, because I think it felt like he was trying to get them all feeling like, what would you feel, or trying to make them make sense of it, like he was trying to get Jimmy to understand, can't you see why they distrust you? Like, even just a little bit. Like, you don't want to be judged based upon your friends. You don't want to be judged based upon, you know, being a skateboarder and what is associated with that, but can you see why you are? You know, and so once Jimmy kind of recognized, yeah, I guess I can see why they would think that I'm doing something bad, that made him understand. Jimmy was now understanding what his parents and what his sister might feel like, as far as why are they judging him so much. And then I think the sister's clarity came towards the end of the session when she was sitting in Jimmy's chair, and she kind of like had this moment where she was like, yeah, I guess I can see that he's not a troubled kid, that he's not being bad or mean, you know. And it was like there was a moment where it clicked to her a little bit more, where she was like, I guess I can see that. And so that's her understanding where Jimmy's coming from. I like that connection between the siblings, because it seems like they had drifted the farthest apart.
Yeah. Okay, anything else from anybody? Okay, we'll move on. Adopting a positive, future-oriented focus. I liked how at the end of their session, or towards the end, he talked about, you know, these are some of the things I want you to work on doing for the next session. And I couldn't get the last 3 minutes to play. You can fill me in on that last 3 or 4 minutes.
I'm afraid to talk because I don't know if it'll go through. So you said the last 3 minutes?
I was going to say, the last 3 to 4 minutes of the video I could not get to play. It kept cutting out, and it would start all over at the beginning again, and I was like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. I watched 45 minutes all over again for the 3rd time. So,
I think the last 4 minutes, correct me if I'm wrong, that was just when he asked, what are you going to take from this? So first he asked everyone, what was it like to be in a therapy session, and only the parents answered. And then he specifically asked Jimmy and the sister, Minnie, something like that, what they're going to take away from the session. And Jimmy said he's going to take away that his parents don't necessarily hate him, they're just overly worried. I think that's what he said. And then the sister said, what you just said, Zeta, that she saw her brother in a different light.
okay.
Did you understand that?
Yeah, I understood every word. That was great this time.
Yay!
So did they really talk? I don't know if they really gave a future focused or what they were going to. That was the part that I kind of missed throughout it, is what did they really talk about focusing on for the future? Like, was there something in that last 4 minutes that talked about that?
Maybe. Did you hear the part where he said, this week you need to go on all your dates, and then did you hear him say that they need to meet on Sunday and talk for half an hour?
Nope, it was right before that it cut out probably, because I did hear him say something about Sunday, and then I couldn't get it to play after that.
Okay. So they're supposed to, the parents are supposed to talk with each other about a way to help him, how they can develop a way to build trust between them and Jimmy. And then they were supposed to all talk about it on Sunday, a way that they could feel that they don't have to be worried about Jimmy. And then they were supposed to come back to another therapy session a week later. So that's kind of, I don't know, they had some goals for the week. Those are short-term future goals.
Okay. Well, then that's something about starting to change the future then. So, okay. Was there anything else on any of that anybody came up with?
Well, and the son was and the father were going to drive together to the skate park. I thought that was cool. So, a good future goal.
Yeah, I liked that. Okay, the refocusing from complaints to aims. Did anybody have anything on that from this?
I think the whole session was kind of about that. I mean, trying to refocus what they're, I mean, because like from the get-go, after the introductions, when he said, okay, why are you here? And the sister was like, Jimmy, like she was like, that's why we're here. And then towards, I think that was like a complaint. And all that the mom had to say, the sister had to say, were all complaints against Jimmy about what Jimmy's doing and how bad he is, and and then I think that they were changing those complaints to, I think their aim was then how to get on the same page, how to build trust as a family, and then clearly they're going to need more therapy as far as there's some more issues that they need to address. Like they didn't address that Jimmy's not being home at a reasonable hour, that he's not participating in family chores or whatever they wanted him to, or that he's not going to school or getting a job, So there's things that they all obviously need to address. But I felt like that first word that the daughter said, Jimmy, she was like, it was like so obvious that she was so upset about it. Towards the end, it was almost like, oh, I can see a little bit clearer now that our future is going to be a little bit better. So I can see how that happened the whole session.
Yeah. I agree with you.
The next one talks about instilling hope and optimism, which is a lot of what you just talked about with the fact that they talked through, there's all those things that have to still be addressed, but they do have that hope now that maybe they can overcome these things because they've addressed the first major milestone. So, okay. Does anybody have anything else they want to add on any of that?
I just realized I keep shaking and nodding my head and no one can see me. But I was shaking no.
Okay, encouraging shared efforts, concrete steps, and perseverance was the next major thing. And I don't know that I really saw, I mean, the concrete steps and the shared efforts is, going to the skate park, driving him to the skate park, mom and dad doing the date nights, and continuing to work through their problems. And then there was also the helping families to accept human limitations, which I think that was one thing that did get brought up. Dad said, he had to work more and was away from home more, and that was it's a human limitation. You can only be in so many places at one time.
I thought it was interesting. I don't know if this applies. I thought everyone was as they're being made, like they accuse one another, but none of them seem to react. Can you hear me now?
Little bit.
Oh well.
I got a little bit of what you were saying. but not enough to be able to really truly understand what you were trying to tell us.
Important.
Okay, well, we'll go on, and if you write what down in the notes, and we'll see it that way, I guess. Sorry about that. Does anybody have anything else they want to add on any of that? Okay, how about involving families in recovery from individual trauma? I'm not sure how much of that we had here, but if anybody came up with anything, I'd be glad to hear it.
I noticed something. Might not of me.
Keep going.
Okay. At the end, he had the sister go set to the side, and he was talking to the parents and Jimmy. And I was kind of wondering if he was going to say anything about the sister, because it seemed like he was done. And then he turned to her and was like, "Okay, well, you need to go." Oh man.
We heard you up to you need to go.
I was saying, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I should probably stop talking. Probably stop trying to say things.
No, keep going.
I was just saying, I thought it was... Oh, it came back. I can see when it's going out. I can see when it's going in and out. Oh well.
I'm sure whatever. I heard up to the talking to the sister part, and then I kind of lost what you were saying after that. So. Oh, and now she's gone altogether.
We lost her. Oh, there she is.
She's coming back.
Hello.
Okay, Heather, you're back. Try real quick.
Oh, okay. I was just saying, I don't know what's wrong with my computer.
Well, we'll keep moving
Yeah,
in.
I don't know. I can see it going in and out, so it's okay.
Well, we'll keep talking, and hopefully you can hear us. So, okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, that's good. Okay, revisioning services to strengthen families, where it talks about the collaboration and teamwork, the multi-system community-based interventions. I was looking at some of the major headlines here, see if anybody has anything they want to add on these. Systems-oriented approaches, many pathways of resilience. Prevention from reaction to proaction. We'll go that far. Is there anything anybody found in any of those?
I think as far as sorry, I can't remember what I was going to say. The collaboration, I think that he was trying to get them to find something that they could do as a family that brought them together. And this was at the beginning of the session, how they were talking about camping. They don't do that anymore. And he's like, oh, that's because there's no skate parks and camping. It's hard to skate, board when you're camping. So he was trying to see a way for them to work together as a team, as a family, to come together, because clearly that part is broken. They're no longer acting as a family system. And Jimmy even said it himself. I don't feel like I'm part of a family, And so I think as far as that is concerned, they have to find something like camping that they all can do, that they all enjoy. not that Jimmy is forced to do, not that their daughter is forced to do, but something that they will all four enjoy doing together. And I think that's really hard to do as a family, because you have to meet the needs of everybody that's there. And I think I have 5 children, and I can imagine that it would be hard to even find that for 2, to find something to do. And another thing, we're kind of running short on time. I was supposed to be the timekeeper. Sorry, I lost track. And I liked our conversations, but so I think that we've gone through most of the. I don't know. Do you guys feel good about that? I feel like we've gone through most of that
Yeah.
chapter.
I was going to say the majority of the rest of the stuff talked about, I think, as professionals, what we can do, which I think that we hit on all the key points up to this point. So, yeah. So does anybody have anything else they want to add to it?
I think that's good. I think we got everything. Well,
Well,
not everything, but we did a lot of the chapter.
There is okay, it does say the last question on here is discuss and record how a treatment professional or paraprofessional might prepare to capitalize on such opportunities to introduce or reinforce the types of resiliency factors from Walsh's article. So I think we kind of did that as we went through it. I don't think we necessarily need to go back and rehash all of it, but we did talk about how he brought different things in and brought up different points. I think that was how we kind of did it as we went through it, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So, Heather, are you going to send out a Google Doc or something that we can all look over, or what's the plan on all of that?
That would probably be best. So yes.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you guys all for being here, and we will, I think, unless anybody has anything to add, we'll call it a night so we can all get back to our families.
Sounds good. Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Good night.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, to you too.
You guys
Bye.
too. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks.